You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Fishing the DMV. I'm your host, Thomas Ahrens, and today we're heading back up to the legendary Susquehanna drainage area with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joe Raymond. Sir, long time coming to get you on the show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
As always, with guests the first time, I just want to kind of let the world know, like the man behind the legend. Like, what got you? What's your story? How did this all come about?
As far as like the guiding goes,
Everything. How'd you get into fishing?
So I grew up fishing. My dad took us fishing when we were kids. My uncle, my mom's brother, had a farm with a meadow and a creek that went through it, Mill Creek. So we would go over there when we were kids and, just splash around and flip over rocks and catch crawfish and minnows and snakes and turtles and catch bass every now and then and carp. Anything that was in the creek, we had fun going after. And then, as you get older, we would go to the Susquehanna, but we would fish further south on the Susquehanna down. It would be like the Columbia area, Long Level. We would fish below the Safe Harbor Dam a lot. We would fish for walleye, bass, but things were so different back then. When I was a kid, this is before the internet and YouTube, and I mean, we only knew what our dad showed us, and that was pretty much throwing little twister tails, little chartreuse twister tails, and rebel crawfish. And
I miss those.
I mean, yeah, sometimes you'd catch them and sometimes you wouldn't, and we didn't know to do anything else. But so that was my younger years, and then I did lose touch of fishing for probably a decade. In between 15, or I would say in between like 12 or 13, and then I got back into it in my early 20s. And that was about the time where more information was readily available. I found out about a tackle shop in Lancaster called Susquehanna Fishing Tackle.
Hey.
And yeah, we started going in there. And those guys knew about the river. I mean, those guys fished the river a lot. They knew they did some guiding. And I never actually fished with either of the owners of that place, but they helped me a lot at the beginning with just, getting set up with the right tackle and some of the right lures. And they kind of helped. They gave me something to work with. Try this here, try that there. And that's when the Susquehanna River and River Smallmouth really got into my blood. I would say like in my mid 20s. I ended up getting a kayak at one point. It was a Wilderness Systems Tarpon 120. So I would use that. I had a couple different little boats. The first one I had was a Sea Nymph with a 25 horsepower prop. Then I ended up getting it was a Tracker, 175. I think it had a 75 horsepower outboard, prop motor. And I was able to fish Long Level. I was able to fish all the lakes down through. I would fish the bay or the upper bay where the Susquehanna dumps in. It would be like Haverty Grace. And one of the biggest smallmouth I ever caught was down there. And that was, way back in the day on that boat. And then, you start hearing the stories about the upper Susquehanna and, what you can do with a jet boat. So I believe I was 27 or 28 when I got my first jet boat. It was a Duracraft with a 115-80 outboard jet on it. It was a very nice boat, and it opened up a whole nother world of, shallow water fishing. Started fishing, north of Harrisburg a lot more, spending pretty much all my free time. I was fortunate for years. The job that I had, we would work 4-10s. So I'd end up with a 3-day weekend.
Oh, cool.
And I got a camper. I was living in Lancaster County. My house was in Ephrata, but I bought a camper and I set it at the riverfront campground. And pretty much Thursday after work, I just drive straight to my camper. And sometimes I'd fish Thursday evening, but I definitely fish all day Friday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. I'd be out for 12 hours from sun up to sundown. And just, I remember, going back into work on Mondays, just feeling like I need a vacation. Like I am so exhausted. This is it's a lot of, it's so much fun, but it wears you out.
Yeah.
It does. But it was in my blood, and that's all I did. That was all I did in my free time. Just completely obsessed with fishing. So, the boat that I had, that Duracraft, it was a nice boat, but over the summer, when the river would get really low, like it is right now, I still would run that thing wherever I wanted to go, and I was beating the snot out of that boat. I mean, pretty much on Sunday, I'd have to tow the boat back to one of my buddies back in Lancaster County, and he'd weld the boat back up so it would be ready for the next weekend. I don't know how many times I ripped gashes into the bottom of that thing, and I would stuff. I had I think they were Yum Money Minnows. I had these big soft plastic swim baits that when I would put gouges, when I would hit, we would call them can openers. When I'd hit rocks and open the boat up, I'd jam these soft plastics up in the holes from underneath and basically plug them up to stop the water from coming in so I could fish the rest of the weekend. And then I'd tow the boat back to Dave and have him weld it up so I'd be good to go for the next weekend. And it just got to the point where I knew that I needed a custom boat. I knew that I needed something. What really worried me, it didn't worry me so much over the summer. I was never afraid that I'd sink the boat or anything like that. But over the winter, there was a couple times I didn't crack real hard, but you start to think, what would happen if I did hit something really hard and open this boat up in 30 some degree water? This could potentially be, you could end up in a very bad situation. And I was doing well enough financially that I could afford the boat that I wanted. And I went through all kinds of different options at the time. It was between River Pro and Rock Proof. And I loved the way the River Pros looked, but I talked to people that owned River Pros and I talked to people that owned Rock Proofs, and it just sounded like the Rock Proofs fished a lot better. They're better set up for the Susquehanna. They had UHMW bottoms, they had tunnels, and the deck layout and everything like that was just better. The first one that I actually went out and test drove was the first time that I ever drove a River Rocket. It was through a friend of a friend. I was introduced to this guy named Tom Mills, and I knew that it was a possibility that this guy might be selling this boat. So I went to test drive the thing and I fell in love with it. I was like, dude, I'll buy it. And he had the intentions of going and building another one then. Well, it turned out that for him to build another one, it was going to be a lot more expensive than what he thought. It was going to be a lot more than what he paid for that original boat. So he's like, dude, I need a little more money for it. And then I started thinking, and I'm like, you know what? I might as well just build exactly what I want. I might as well just build the boat that I want. And that's kind of what kicked off this whole guiding thing, because in the process of me building that boat, I was kind of active on social media, and I did YouTube videos and stuff like that. I made some videos, and this kind of got offered to me as being, a fishing. There was an out-of-state guide service that asked me basically, do you want to do some guide trips? The guy was like, I see you're building that big fancy boat. Would you like to get into guiding? And I'm like thinking to myself, dude, I don't like these fishing guides. I don't even really like this guy, but man, this boat is expensive. I guess if I could guide 2 or 3 days a month, I could guide. It would pay for my hobby. So I ended up, I built the boat. I took delivery of the boat. I ran the boat for 6 months, and then I kind of dabbled in guiding for a little bit, and it started to take off. The Susquehanna back then had fishing guides. There was some fishing guides, but it wasn't anything like it is right now. There wasn't anybody doing it full time. There had been guys that had tried doing it full time prior, but because of family situations and everything like that, like it's not a business. It's not something you get into if you have a family. I don't think so. I don't think it would be a wise decision unless you were independently wealthy otherwise, or your wife made really good money. It's not something, you won't want to try and support a family as a fishing guide, I don't think. But I was single, and I kept getting busier and busier with it. And the job that I had at the time was I was working in construction. I was a pipe fitter. I did plumbing and sprinkler fitting.
It's a good job.
Yeah, I made good money. I made really good money. I everything we did was prevailing wage. So it was all government work. We worked at schools. I spent a lot of time at the Capitol complex in Harrisburg.
That's a dream.
Yeah, I mean, we were making back then. We were pulling six figures, and I was single, and I could afford to do kind of what I wanted to do. Like I could. I didn't necessarily want to. When I decided that I was going to guide full time, leave my job, it was because I was always getting sent out of town, and I didn't like that. We made prevailing wage, and so I would make the same money whether I worked 5 minutes away from my house or 3 hours away from home. I didn't get paid anymore for staying out of town, and I got kind of sick of that. And I realized I can at least try this, and if it doesn't work, I can try this guiding thing, and if it doesn't work, I'll just go back to plumbing. And I know I don't want to do this forever. I don't want to do that. I knew I didn't want to do it forever, but I figured it would lead to something else. You never know. Like, life's an adventure. Why not give it a shot? And
was there a moment that you had where it's like, I'm going to try to jump in full force and go full time, or was it a gradual step up?
I told myself I was going to be a plumber until I was 40. I was going to, and I think it was at the age of 33 that I actually said, I'm done with this. I was on a job. I don't even really want to get into what happened, but the superintendent and I did not get along. And I knew it was just a matter of time before I got shipped somewhere else, which I was fine with. And I just ended up leaving the job. I left the job, and I figured it would be 2 weeks until I got called to another, to go on another job. And that's the way everything was set up. But in that 2 week time, like, I just started filling my schedule, and it was the end of the summer, it was going into fall, and people wanted to fish. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do this all fall. Like, who cares? I don't need to go back to work. I'm not going to make the same amount of money that I made as a plumber, and I'm not going to get this, but I'll make enough. So I ended up guiding all the way, I think, through December, and Reynolds still had work, and I could have gone back to work that winter. But then I'm like, you know what? If you go back, you're just going to get sucked right back into it again. And then, do you want to guide full time next spring, or do you want to be working for Reynolds, and who knows where they're going to have you working at? Why don't you just try this and see where it goes? So that's what I did. And that was in 2000. So that was 2016. That was,
okay.
Dude, that was almost 9 years ago, probably exactly.
God damn, dude.
Wow. It was the end of August. Yeah. It was the end of August in 2016 that this happened. And it was a little nerve wracking, but I didn't have any debt, and I had plenty of money saved up, where it wasn't like, if it didn't work, it wasn't a big deal. Like, who cares? If the guiding thing doesn't work, just go back and work for Reynolds again, and who cares? But it just kept getting busier and busier. I mean, within a year, I already needed help. I needed more guys to help me out with overflow. So the guy that I was talking about, Tom Mills, who I went and test drove his boat, him and I ended up becoming like really good friends. I consider him one of my best friends. And he was the first guy that I needed help with multi-boat trips. And I just, he ended up getting his guide license, and he started helping with overflow, but he's really busy with he works for Sportco marketing. It's he's a rep for Hornady. He would be the main Hornady rep for this territory, and that keeps him super busy. So he can only do so much, and I needed more help, so I started bringing more guys on. I'm the only one out of the group that does it full time, like pretty much every day, but I keep the other guys pretty busy. I would say as busy as they want to be. I mean, it is amazing what it's turned into.
Have you ever thought about that and just reflected on it? I mean, I saw how your face lit up when you're like, wow, damn, it's 9 years. Like, do you ever have those moments where you like look back and you're like, holy shit?
I have these moments that I look back and I think how fast time's going. It just blows my mind. Yeah, it's freaking crazy. I never regret doing it. I mean, I've done so much cool stuff, man, and met so many people that, like, if I think about like that fork in the road where you could have gone and go and guide, or you could have stayed a plumber. And I think about what possibly could have happened as a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what stories would I have? I wouldn't have taken a 4-star general. I wouldn't have been introduced to him as a plumber. But like this past spring I didn't even know what was going on, but every year it seems like something like this happens. I mean, this is just a quick story. I knew that this was a trip that got arranged, and I knew that there was a general coming. I was going to be taking a general fishing, and I was going to be taking a colonel fishing. So these guys show up, and I just didn't even think much of it. And we get about halfway through the day, and we start talking about, so what'd you guys do? What'd you do? And so the guy who's a colonel, he was the helicopter pilot for Marine One through 4 different presidencies. So yeah, the colonel was the helicopter pilot for Marine One, and he flew through 4 different presidencies. He flew Reagan, he flew the first Bush, he flew Clinton, and he flew the second Bush.
Wow.
He was the helicopter pilot that was flying in and out of the White House every day. He flew Princess Diana. He actually crashed a Marine One chopper doing a drill. He said that there's actually 3 of these Marine One choppers. They're only Marine One when the president's on them, but there's 3 choppers that are the exact same. And before they fly the president, they do a test run on all 3 of these choppers. And he was ordered to, I mean, this is just, these guys had so many cool stories, but he was ordered to land this thing in a field that had like a party tent set up. And he said, I'm not putting this thing down. I'm going to suck that tent up. And they said, you are to put that chopper down. And he started descending, and he sucked the freaking tent up into the blades of the chopper and crashed the Marine One.
Holy crap.
So anyhow, that's the colonel. So then we get to the general, and the general he's a 4-star general. He was the commandant for the Marine Corps. He was the head guy for the Marines, in charge of 225,000 people.
You're kidding. That is so cool.
He ran the Iraq War, the Gulf War, and the War of Fallujah. He was like the top guy. He was one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if I would have stayed a plumber,
you never would have had those stories.
You'd never, yeah. And these guys are like, they're super cool. Like, I never would have, if we wouldn't, I knew that the guy was a general, and I knew the other guy was a colonel, but if we wouldn't have started talking, I would have never guessed that they were who they were. It was really neat, but it seems like every year something like this happens where, I'm introduced to some type of person that, without doing what I do, I would have never met them.
That's just, do you have any other stories?
Like that? I mean, dude,
that's a pretty big one.
Those guys are scheduled to come fish with me here on the Susquehanna in the end of, no, it's in like 2 weeks. And apparently they're bringing like one of the head guys for the IRS, which
that's so cool.
Like big guys in government, like, dude, they were saying that they might be able to bring Bush 2. Bush 2 is really into fishing. So
really?
Yeah. So the helicopter pilot was George W. Bush's tennis partner at Camp David for 8 years. like Bush apparently was really into playing tennis. So these guys have a really close relationship.
Is that a weird, I don't know, vibe? Because I think if I had to share a boat with someone like that up there, it'd be a little weird to try to talk to them, because it's like, do you like the weather? Like, how the hell do you small talk the head of the Marine Corps or the president of the United States? It's just got to be insane.
If you would have heard my initial thought was, if you would have heard the way I was talking to these guys for the first half of the trip, like I felt like a jerk, a total jerk, because like one of them brought their own gear. And I remember thinking to myself, dude, don't bring that stuff on my boat. It's not going to work. And like, that's just not going to work. Don't bring that stuff on my boat. But he brought it and he snapped like 2 fish off. And I remember being like, dude, you like, just put that's, you got to retire that stuff. That stuff is, hang it on the wall. You're using this now, and don't break this rod. This is a very expensive rod. Don't flip fit. Don't try and like flip fish. And I remember like kind of giving him, I wasn't in a great mood that morning for whatever reason. So, and it was for a couple reasons. I thought I was only going to be taking 2 people out. And then it ended up being 3 people on my boat. And that's kind of one of my pet peeves. I can't stand taking 3 adults out at the same time because the boat gets cramped and there's lures flying past your head. And, you know, they show up and there's 3 of them. I'm like, oh, gosh, here we go. Here we go. Like, who's going to get hooked today? And I started off a little sour, and then, you know, breaking off the fish. And then I didn't want my gear to break. And then, you know, once I found out who these guys were, I was like, dude, if you want to break my rod, I don't even care. Like, you can do whatever you want. You can have the rod. Like, I can't believe this. You were in charge of running a war, like, and multiple wars. Like, you worked hand in hand with the presidents. This is crazy.
Oh my God.
I mean, and they got into a lot of different stories of, you know, dealing with presidents that I probably shouldn't talk about. And like, just all kinds of stuff that it was mind blowing to hear the stuff that these guys had to say. And
it's got to be hard to fish instead of just turning around and be like, just start talking to me about stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
dude, I mean, I was texting. So once I figured out who they were, I mean, I started texting people like, do you know who this guy is? Do you know who these guys are? And then they're looking them, you know, my friends are looking them up, and then they're texting me back, like telling me to ask all these questions, like ask them about the aliens. And
is Roswell real?
Yeah, like every possible, ask them what they thought about Trump, ask them what they thought about this president, ask them what they thought about, you know, Obama. Try and get and I got to talk to them about all that, and they told really interesting stories about everybody. That, you know, they don't care at this point because they're out of it, but they told me what they thought about everything, and
that's cool.
And I trusted them. But yeah, I mean, this stuff happens every year, man. Last year it was, I don't even know. I mean, last year I got a random phone call. I remember I was driving somewhere and I got this phone call. It was a Swedish phone number. It popped on my phone and it just said Switzerland, and I answered it, and these guys are talking in a real heavy accent, and they're like, yeah, we're in town for work, and we wanted to know if you could take us fishing tomorrow. And I actually had a guy cancel earlier that morning for the next day, and I'm like, yeah, I can actually take you fishing. I was like, so what are you guys doing anyhow? And they're like, oh, we play in a band and yada yada yada. I'm like, what band do you play in? And they said, we're in the Hives, and we're touring with the Foo Fighters.
Whoa.
We're playing with the Foo. And I'm like, no way. You know Dave Grohl? And they're like, that's cool. We've known him for like 25 years. And I'm like, dude, bring Dave Grohl fishing tomorrow. So,
dude, that is wild.
Yeah. So they're like, yeah, I don't think anything's going on. We probably could. And Dave's into all kinds of stuff. He'll probably come. So, you know, we go and I meet him at the ramp the next morning, and I guess Dave ended up having something going on. But I took these guys from the band The Hives, which, you know, once I realized who they were and I listened to some of their music, I recognized it from back in like high school days. It's, you know, kind of punk rock. My brothers are musicians, and they knew their songs.
Oh, they are?
These guys,
that's cool.
Yeah. yeah, these guys, my youngest brother actually covered one of their songs in a talent show I don't know if it was high school or middle school, but he covered one of the Hive songs. But they gave us tickets to the show then, like
Oh,
VIP
wow.
tickets. So we got to watch the Hives perform. And then we had basically front row tickets to see Foo Fighters too. And after the Hives played, they came out and the drummer and the singer hung out with us for a little bit and took pictures. And it was cool for my brothers, just because they're musicians and they knew more about their music than I did, to be honest. But
It's the connections you make, and
it's the
that's what you
connections.
have.
Yeah. I've met so many, just so many interesting people, great people. And I haven't had a whole lot of bad experiences with crappy people. Like most of the people we're I would say like one of the elite. The way that our pricing structure and everything is, we're one of the most expensive. We are the most expensive guide service on the river, so that kind of gives you that higher end clientele,
Mhm.
and it weans out the people that you might not want to deal with, and that works out. That works out great. That's how I mean. But either way, like for the most part in fishing, people are pretty cool. You have similar interests, you have addictive personalities, kind of obsessive personalities, and but yeah, that type of stuff happens every year and sometimes multiple times a year. You just never know. I mean, the more recent one, we didn't actually get this one, but I was going back and forth with one of the managers. I thought we were going to be taking a bunch of football players out. I mean, this stuff happens every year. A bunch of professional football players, guys from the Eagles, they ended up going with one of the other guide services, which is it's fine. He gets some of this stuff too, but it just you never know who's going to be. You never know who's going to show up next. It's been pretty cool, but still, it's not like I would much rather be doing this than plumbing, but this still is
Well,
not
yeah.
something that I want to do forever because
Why?
I mean, it's just a grind. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'd want to completely get out of it, but eventually I'd like to really kind of cut back and just pick, my favorite people that I want to take out. So it does happen a lot where, I don't know, if the fishing isn't great and you have guys on the boat that like their skill level isn't where maybe they think it is, it can be a little frustrating, and that happens a lot when you're out on I fish. I'm on my boat every day, and I deal with some of the best anglers and some guys that aren't the best, and when things, it just can get frustrating when the fish aren't cooperating the way that you want them to, and then the people don't have the skill level that is required to catch them. And when you have that going on, you might have that go on for like a week or two where the fishing just isn't great. And you're taking out people that, I mean, I've never had anybody skunk, but I just don't like the feeling sometimes that you have at the end of the day where maybe the expectation wasn't met. I don't get negative reviews, but it can start to work on you after a while. But then eventually, like right now, that's kind of what's going on. The river's really low. I think we lost some fish this spring. I think the fish population's down a little bit. I can't access all the water that I'd like to be able to access. There's still a lot of people fishing. There's a lot of these kayak tournaments and stuff going on. The fish are getting a lot of pressure, and they're just not as easy to catch as they were in the past. Not that we aren't still catching them, but it starts to work on you, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. But then eventually you get some rain and the river jumps up a foot or two, and then you smack them all over again, and you're a superhero every day.
How do you
But
keep the fire burning when you've done this for so long, and it's almost like the customer service type of deal where it can be draining on you. So how do you keep the spark alive?
I mean, it's just you got to be. you got to sit back and think about how blessed you are to be doing what you do, and think about how many, so many people would love to be able to do what I do every day. And you just got to keep a positive attitude about it, and just be appreciative that I'm in the situation that I'm in, and just try to make the best of every situation every day. But it is a job. Like, it is a job. I've done it long enough that this isn't like fun fishing, and I treat it like a job. And my job is to put people on fish. My job is to sell. I sell bites. I sell, that's what I do. And I want to do the best that I can every day to, I, I, I often put myself in, I always think of like, how would I feel if I was in their situation? Like, I always put myself in the customer's shoes, and think, how would the customer feel about this or that, or, I want to do everything I can to just try and keep them happy, or, do the best job that I can for them. But, as far as keeping the I guess that fire going for fishing, I mean, the fishing industry kind of does that for you with somewhat with new tackle that comes out, new rods, new reels, new baits, new techniques. I enjoy fishing tournaments. That the competitiveness in it. I don't really go fun fishing for bass hardly at all. The only time my boat runs is when I'm working, or if I'm fishing in a tournament. Sometimes over the winter when things are a little slower, I might go out fun fishing every now and then. But for the most part, that's the only time my boat is going to run. And the tournament fishing keeps some of that fire going too. And it's the competitiveness. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a fishing guide. I guess I'm well known enough that if I'm going to fish a tournament, I'm expected to throw down. You can't go fish. I can't be going and fishing tournaments and getting beat by the whole crowd. Then you become kind of like the laughing stock. And there's a lot of guides that think they're the greatest thing, and they refuse to fish tournaments because they don't want to end up in that situation. And I sometimes wonder how they would actually square up against some of these guys. And it makes me like, I want to know how good I am too. Like, sometimes I question some stuff that I like. I'm on the water so much. Sometimes I feel like I should be better than what I actually am. And you need to go fish a tournament and compete against other really good guys to somehow, or, find out how good you are. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these guys that fish these tournaments up in Sunbury they're
really
it's not
good.
even it's not my home water, it's their home water, and they fish a lot. And if I can be competitive against them, then it's a good feeling. When we fished a tournament up there, I don't know, it was probably about a month ago. Eric Galasso and I, the Epic Eric, you know who he is?
Yep.
Yeah, we fished the tour. It was actually the first time that we ever fished together on the Susquehanna. And we always talked about fishing together on the Susquehanna. And it was the Toys for Tot tournament. And we didn't pre-fish or anything. We just went up there, showed up. And I hadn't fished up there over the summer in at least 9 or 10 years.
Wow.
I fish up there in the fall, and I fish up there a little in the spring, but I hadn't fished up there over the summer in 9 or 10 years. And I called Eric and said, "Hey, you want to do this? This would be fun. We finally get to fish the Susquehanna together, and you never know what could happen. Like, I'm just going to run the same patterns I'm running back home, and we're going to see how we do." And we had a blast, man. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We didn't catch fish everywhere I thought we were going to catch fish, like, where I caught them freaking a decade ago, but I was able to, I like being I like being put in those situations, in those high pressure situations where you have to figure it out. Like, you can't just, so if I was out fun fishing and not in a tournament and things weren't going the way I wanted them to go, I'd probably just be like, you know what, they're not biting today, and there's other stuff I have to do. I'm just going to run back to the ramp and put the boat on the trailer and leave and whatever. Like, It's just not happening today. But when you're fishing in a tournament, like, you have to throw down. Like, you can't go back to the scales with a shit bag. Like, you got to pull out all the stops. And, that's pretty much what we did that day. We just ran, I ran everything, same patterns that we were, doing back here. And we didn't have I didn't think we had a spectacular bag. I think we had we had just under 15 pounds. We went back there and, everybody's talking about how they struggled and yada, yada, yada. And they're like, what do you got? And I'm like, I don't know. I think we have around 15 pounds. And they're like, no way. Are you serious? Like, you guys might actually win this. So we went up and weighed our fish in, and we ended up in second place out of, like, I think it was 60 boats. So that makes you, all right. Yeah. We're good. I mean,
and I can see if you're just catching smallmouth, like, that can be over the time and how much you got to do it. You need a different spice of life. And I think you mentioned like, are there different species that you like to actually pursue besides smallmouth?
Yeah, I get into musky fishing a little bit up in New York on the St. Lawrence. So when the musky thing, I've been obsessed with musky since I was a kid. Like, this goes way back to, fishing when we were kids in the creeks in the Conestoga River, and even in Mill Creek. Like, I remember hearing stories of these muskies and how big they get. Like, they're 4 and 5 feet long and yada, yada, yada. And it was just like this mysterious fish that I never actually caught one until I was in my mid-20s. But, I still remember, that first one that I caught. And that's another one of those deals that it gets into your blood. I don't know how much you know about what I do up in New York in the spring and the fall on the St. Lawrence River, but I do go. I've been going up there for maybe 7 or 8 years. Let me think. 18. It's been 7 years. And I guide for smallmouth in the spring and the fall. And the St. Lawrence also has the biggest muskies in the world. Like, the world record muskies are from the St. Lawrence. Some of the biggest muskies in the world are in the St. Lawrence. So as you're fishing for bass up there, you catch them every now and then, or you'll be bringing a bass. Dude, we've had 5-pound bass on, and you're fighting them, and you get them next to the boat, and a muskie comes up and T-bones them and makes them disappear. Like, that's how big these fish are up there. So I don't know. I guess it was in 2022 in the fall, I started getting into, targeting them and had success. And that, I mean, it just, I enjoy going up there every fall and catching a couple of those things. I feel like at this point, I've caught some big ones. I've got 6 over at 55 inches or bigger. The biggest one I got, the longest one. So the 2 biggest fish that I caught were actually last year. I got one that was 55 by 27, 55 inches long with a 27-inch girth that we estimated at 50 pounds,
wow.
Which is like to any musky fisherman, that's fish of a lifetime. And then a month after that, I got a 57 and a half. It was 57 and a half inches long. And that one, I think, had a 24-inch girth. So it wasn't a super thick one, but it was still like, it was a 57 and a half inch muskie. I mean, most muskie guys, you don't see many of them on a ruler that long.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see many pictures of them on boards that are that long. Like, it was a monster. I bet its head was 15 inches long. It was just an absolute giant. I've had 2 very near-death experiences fishing for those things in the fall. The one time I fell out of the boat releasing one by myself in 37-degree water. And I was in Canada with no cell phone service and nobody around. It was in December. It was a very scary situation that I remember thinking to myself that morning, like, you shouldn't be going out here, but that muskie thing was in my blood. And it was actually, at the time, that was the biggest one I had ever caught. It was 56 inches. It was a 56-incher, and I was releasing it, and I was holding it I was in my bass boat. I had a Phoenix bass boat, I was hanging off the side of it, and I had my one hand on the gunnel, and my other hand was down holding the tail of the fish. And I went to push the fish off to, give it a kick, and my hand slipped, and I rolled off the boat in 37-degree water.
Oh God.
And I was about 40 minutes from the boat ramp. Dude, it was terrifying. Like, by the time I got back to the ramp, I was hypothermic, just all completely out of it. And I don't know. It was just it was a very scary situation. And the reason I felt bad about, I just felt weird about going out that day was 2 weeks earlier. I went out in similar conditions, and I don't know what the heck happened, but I was about a half hour from the ramp. I ate I stopped on the way to that ramp and got like a gas station salad and ate it, and then I'm out in rough water staring at forward facing sonar screen, bouncing up and down, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, something's not right. And I think it was a combination of like seasickness and food poisoning. And dude, I couldn't function. Like, I went down, and I don't even know how I made it back to the ramp. My boat was taking on water. I went up and sat in the truck. I passed out in the truck for like an hour. Finally started to feel a little better. Got my boat on the trailer. Then I had like an hour and a half drive home. I was pretty far away from home. I had driven. This is closer to Lake Ontario that I had driven to. And dude, it just kept coming back, and like, oh, dude, it was a disaster. It was. I don't know how I made it out of that one, but
did you think you weren't going to make it?
I didn't think I was going to make it back. I thought for sure this is it. You're done. I mean, I got sick. I couldn't function, and my boat was taking on water. The St. Lawrence is big water, man. And I was in a gut where the wind was ripping. It wasn't even supposed to be that windy. That was the thing. Like, they were only calling for like, I think it was 10 to 12 mile an hour winds, but it was coming out of the west. It was blowing straight down the river. And it was in a stretch that just, when the wind gets, it was a stretch that I had fished before, and I had fished it on calm days and never had any problem. And I didn't think that 10 to 12 mile an hour winds would be a big deal. And it wasn't real bad when I put in, and I got out there and I was staring at a fish on my screen. I was chasing a fish around and, bobbing up and down in these waves. And all of a sudden it hit me, and I'm like, dude, this is bad. But this fish was huge. I mean, I could tell it was, one of these 50-inch caliber fish. And I wanted to catch it because I had heard stories. I had heard there was a 59 that got caught there in this area in 21. And, it's an area that is known for Actually, I think it's where the world record fish came. That's what I was told, that the world record fish came from this area. And, you can kind of gauge on your screen at how big some of these fish are. And I'm pretty sure it was a muskie. It could have been a sturgeon. I didn't get to make that many casts at it, but, I mean, things went sideways real quick. And so the musky thing is a lot of fun, but I don't want to get any more into it up there than I already am, just because I don't feel like I'm going to catch one. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to catch many bigger than the ones that I've already caught. And it's just so dangerous going out and doing that by yourself. And I've guided for them a few times. I get very frustrated with that. It is so hard to land those fish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you work so hard for a bite. Like, you'll work for days to get a bite from one of those big fish. And when you finally get that bite, you have to do everything perfect. Like, you can't screw up. You can't do anything wrong. And I do stuff wrong every now and then too. But when you work really hard to get one of those fish to bite, and then you see somebody foul up and lose the fish, you're just like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to guide people for muskies. I just don't want to do it. I don't know how people, and I feel like, guiding for bass kind of ruined my passion for fun fishing for bass other than tournament fishing. And I didn't want that to happen I was into the muskies enough that I didn't want that to happen to them too. You know what I mean?
No, it makes sense. Like you want to keep some kind of passion in the sport, whether that is for like musky, saltwater things or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, real quick with the time we got left, like, I mean, so how's the river looking right now in September?
It's very low. The river's very low. It's the lowest it's been all year. It's not the lowest it's ever been. I think it's running at about 3-1 at the Harrisburg gauge. There's algae out there. There's the river's not in the best of shape right now, but you know, it happens every year. We're still catching fish. I think we did lose some fish this past year, you know, spring after the spawn. I think this river is getting more pressure than it's ever gotten during the spawn. For about 10 years, they had regular. So the way the Susquehanna is set up, it's kind of like sanctuary water where there's a 100-mile stretch where it's catch and release only. From the Holtwood Dam to the Sunbury Dam, catch and release only. And it's also, it goes 30 miles up to Juniata, from the confluence of the Juniata all the way up to Port Royal. Can't keep the fish. They also had regulations where you weren't allowed to fish during the spawn, and that lasted, well, I guess it lasted for 8 or 9 years. But since they opened it back up where you can fish during the spawn, every year it gets more pressure, especially in the tributaries. And I'm kind of thinking that at this point they need to do something to regulate it, because it's getting, there's just, those fish got beat on worse in these tributaries this spring than ever before. Like, just, they had the snot beat out of them. The same fish getting caught every day off of beds by the same people, and them, you know, blabbing on social media about it and getting all kinds of other people and they're doing the same thing. So that stresses the hell out of those fish. And then on top of that, we had all these high water events, you know, and that in itself is really stressful on the fish. So, you know, one of these last high water events, you know, which the fish were still on beds like the beginning and middle of June. There were a bunch of fish that died. We still don't know how many we lost, but and they were, a lot of them were coming out of the tributaries. And you know, I think that wish guys were just a little more conscious and thought a little bit harder about what they're doing. I mean, we all do it a little bit. I hate it. You know, I would prefer that these tributaries were shut down and you weren't allowed to fish for them for bass in the spring at all. I can survive, you know, I would probably just go to New York in the spring. I would just stay up there the whole time, or, you know, I'd find somewhere else to fish, or I'd just fish out on the main river. But the amount of pressure that these fish get by, you know, recreation, just fun fishing and fishing guides. And, you know, the guys, it's sad to see what happens to these fish in the tributaries during the spawn. So I know we're down some fish. I don't know how many people are talking about it yet, but we're definitely missing some fish this year, and you know, between the high water and all the stress and pressure that was put on them in those creeks, I don't know. I feel like something needs to be done there, but I guess we'll see what happens. We're still catching them, though. I mean, we're still catching them. It's not as bad as, you know, some other years. It's not as bad as maybe like 2005, and it'll come back.
Things go up and down, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, things go up and down. There's still areas that do have plenty of fish. I just hope that once guys figure it out, you know, where the fish are, that they're a little more cautious about what they do, because fishing doesn't get any better with more fishing pressure.
It's interesting. It's an interesting dilemma, because in the outdoor industry, it's like, we want to grow the sport, but to grow the sport, that means you need more people, which means there's more people on the water, which means there's more revenue. But, yeah. And it's like a snake eating its own tail, because you're dealing with a natural resource. It's fascinating.
It is. I don't know how to handle it. And I'm done trying to, like, I don't message people. Like, when I see people doing stupid stuff, either making videos or just posting stupid pictures where you can see everything in the background. I used to try and I don't know, maybe educate, or just, hey, think about what you're doing here, dude. I know you want to, you like the notoriety and everything like that, but you can do this. There's a smart way and a dumb way there's a smart way and a dumb way to go about anything in life. Let's think about how you can do this, but be a little smarter about it. Like maybe turn your phone a little bit so that bridge isn't in the background when you take that picture, or when you shoot your video, make sure that bridge isn't in the background, or that house or whatever, because who knows how many people are going to see that and be sitting here the next day. And then you're probably going to be the first person bitching and complaining about all the people here, but it's your fault.
Yeah. But I mean,
and like, you just, I've had this little saying for years that the secret to bass fishing is having secrets.
why?
And then really it's the secret to anything in life. And you don't have, there really are no secrets on the Susquehanna anymore. But I just wish people were a little more conscious or thought a little harder about what they put out there.
Where does that belief come from? You said you said success. You need secrets to have success, or something like that.
No, the secret, it's kind of a joke, but the secret to bass fishing is having secrets. Like, so if all the same people, like say, even in competitive fishing, like tournament fishing, if everybody was doing the same thing, using the same baits at the same spot every day, like that area is going to go to crap, right? I mean, or it's not going to be any fun. Like you got to have a little bit of an edge or whatever. Like you got to know something, maybe that the next person, if you want to have an edge, you got to know something that, or be a little better than the other guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think what you're saying is like time on the water is important, and having the edge and being able to adapt, because it's inevitable. If you have 10,000 people on the river, at some point there's a probability that a spot will get hit, and then it rotates, and then you rotate through it. And I like what you said about photos, because something that I'm seeing that might happen with kayak tournaments is AI is getting stupid good, to where it's like you just say Joe Raymond holding a nice smallmouth with this in the background, and it automatically generates the whole thing. And then it's could you have an Instagram account in the future where it's just all AI fish catches and you can't tell?
You could do that right now.
And
I think about
crazy.
I think about that. Yeah, I think about that. Like I see pictures of fish and you start to wonder, well, I mean, people are already doing it as jokes, as just parodies. You know what I mean? Like, things are crazy, and I can't control it. I can't control any of it anymore. If for where the river is at right now, if like to go back 10 years and think about where it's at right now, it would have just blown my mind. Like, there's no way that this place is getting this much attention and there's this many people fishing it. But the fact of the matter is, I can't control it. All I can do is, go out there and do the best that I can every day. And I don't message people privately or say anything anymore. But if I get the opportunity like this on a platform to, say what I think, I will. Like, I be a little smarter, about what you put out there. There's a smart way and a dumb way to go about doing anything in life. If you catch a nice fish, you can take a picture of it and post it. But if there's a bridge right there, let's think about how we can just turn the camera a little bit this way. Just tell the guy to take 3 steps to his left and hold the phone out and take the picture so that bridge isn't in the picture. Because, I mean, that's the problem with these tributaries. That's why these tributaries are so freaking, why there's, people from all over God's creation catching these spawning fish in the tributaries in the spring. I mean, 10 years ago, there was people doing this, but it's nothing like it is right now. Like, it's sad to see. There'll be these major tributaries, there'll be 30 boats in a mile stretch in the spring, all catching the same fish every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. The same fish get caught off the same beds multiple times a day. There's guys that, they'll catch the same 21 or 22-inch fish twice in the same day off the same bed, and then they're making a post bragging about how many inches they caught, and it's like, dude, like, you should be ashamed of yourself. You caught the same, like, I guess it's kind of, I don't know. I just think it's stupid. And then look at all that. You got people from Jersey, you got people from New York, you got people from all over the place beating the snot out of these fish on the beds and just beating the snot out of them. The only thing that makes these people leave is when they can't catch them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When the fish are, I mean, they literally can't catch it. Once the fish, they'll be here until the fish are completely 100% off the beds. And then they'll still linger for another week or two. And it makes me sick. And that's why I want to see these, I would like to see these tributaries shut down. See how good these other guides are. See if they can go out and make it on the main river. I don't know.
I really appreciate you coming on today, and just kind of getting your story and your bio, guys, about this really, really big time guide up in our area. Is there anyone I can give a shout out to, or anything we can promote?
I mean, our business, it's Susquehanna Smallmouth Guides. We, we have a website, so you can do a search, Susquehanna Smallmouth Guides, or, on Instagram as Joe Raymond or Susquehanna Smallmouth Guide, Facebook, same deal. We got a whole bunch of great guys. There's myself and 6 other guys, and these guys that help me, these other guides are very, very good. They're like, most of these guys have been fishing the river longer than I have. The latest guy that we brought on to help out, he had just retired. His name's Brian Kessel. So he can do as many trips as I can feed him. But this guy's been guiding on the Susquehanna for 35 years. He's one of the best. I mean, this guy, if Brian's not catching them, nobody's catching them.
Wow.
But that's how, Chris McDonald would have been the first guy that I brought on after Tom. Another guy that had a long history of tournament fishing. Just proved himself to be one of the best guys on the water. Then we brought on George Dufresne, same thing, has won so many tournaments. If I show up to a tournament in Sunbury and George is there, I'm like, oh. Like, dang it, George is good. We got Randy Long. He's another guy, local guy that just has spent so much time on the water, very dialed in. He spends as much time on the water as anybody. And it's not always guiding. A lot of it's fun fishing and just exploring. Like he competes against himself. He wants to have that 10,000 fish. He wants to be the guy at the end of the year that can say he put 10,000 fish in his boat. And he usually, I know he's done it. He's gotten close other years. I know he's boated 120 inches in a year, which is just mind blowing. Dale Ruthford, he's another guy. Dale's been fishing the river for 40 years. He dabbled around in guiding, at different periods of his life. But these guys we have a network of, I feel like our guide service has the most years of experience. I mean, the knowledge we get together at Christmas and have a party, and we all kind of sit around and talk and just tell stories, fishing stories, whatever. And the amount of knowledge and information that goes around that table, it's mind blowing. I mean, these guys are everybody's just very dialed in. They're the best. And there's other good guides, don't get me wrong. There's some other very good guides on the Susquehanna River, but I feel confident in saying that, we are among the best. There's other good guys, but there's a couple guys there's a couple different guide services that are very good, and we're right there with them. So if anybody listening is interested in setting up a trip, I know my schedule is filled for the rest of the fall, pretty much until December. But some of our other guys still have scattered availability, and they definitely be able to get you out this fall. And I think you'd have a great time. Especially, I mean, now is really the time, because the river is missing fish. It doesn't have the fish population that it had last year at this time. If you are thinking about scheduling a trip, you want to think real hard about going out with the guys with the most experience, guys that are really proven to just get your money's worth out of the trip.
Mhm.
So
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Sir, thank you so much for coming on. And as always, guys, I'm going to put a link in the episode description, website, social media, everything for this man and his guide service. So go check him out. If you have any questions for me, please email me fishingthedmv@gmail.com. And we will see you guys next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.